Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat Shalom, Les.
Oh, Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. The parashah for today is Bamidbar, means in the wilderness. Numbers 1:1, and I think all of these are from the Tree of Life version. In the wilderness of Sinai, on the first day of the second month, in the second year from the exodus from the land of Egypt, Adonai spoke to Moshe in the tent of meeting, saying, So it took 13 months to get to Sinai, for Moses to get the Torah, to build the tabernacle and its accompaniments. Now they are getting ready to go into the promised land. Verses 2 to 3. Do a head count of all the community of Bnei Israel by their families and by their ancestral house, with a total of every male, one by one. You and Aaron are to muster by their divisions every son from 20 years old and upward, available to serve in the army of Israel. Verses 4 to 17. One man from each tribe, each head of his father's household, is to assist you. These are the names of the men who will assist you. And then there's a name from each tribe. God himself specified who was to assist in the counting. The tribe of Levi was not listed. They'll be counted later. The tribe of Joseph was split into Ephraim and Manasseh. Numbers 1, verse 18. They assembled all the community on the first day of the second month. They declared their lineage according to their families, the households of their forefathers, with the number of the names of those 20 years old and upward being listed individually. Contrast that with 2 Samuel 24, where David took a census of the people near the end of his life. 2 Samuel 24:1. Now the anger of Adonai flared up against Israel. So he incited David against them, saying, Go number Israel and Judah. This started off sounding like trouble. I looked at chapter 23 attempting to get some context, but most of it was talking about David's mighty men. The last verse mentioned a guy named Uriah the Hittite, who happened to be Bathsheba's first husband. 2 Samuel 24, verse 2. My paraphrase. The king said to Joab, the commander of the army who was with him, Make it so, number 1. 2 Samuel 24, verse 3. But Joab said to the king, May Adonai your God add to the people 100 times as many as they are, while the eyes of my lord the king looks on. But why does my lord the king desire such a thing? I thought this was an odd verse. Joab was David's nephew, son of his sister Zeruiah. Joab was a great military general and was loyal to David. He was an expert at breaking things and killing people. However, he seemed to have no moral compass. He seemed to care not who he killed or why, yet he was opposed to this census. Verse 4, Nevertheless, the king's command to Joab and the army generals remained firm. So Joab and the army generals went out from the king's presence to number the people of Israel. Joab was a soldier. He did not agree, but he followed the order. Verses 5 to 9 talks about the places where they went. The entire census took Joab and his generals 9 months and 20 days. Joab reported the number of valiant men who drew the sword to David. Another oddity is the men of Judah and the men of Israel were differentiated. They were a combined kingdom at this time. 2 Samuel 24, 10 to 25, David repented. Adonai punished Israel, killing 70,000 men. The killing stopped at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. The Jebusites controlled Jerusalem until David ruined their day and took the city. David bought the threshing floor, built an altar, and sacrificed to Adonai, and the plague was stopped. Later on, the temple was built on the site of the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Back to Numbers 1:18. They declared their lineage according to their families, the households of their forefathers, with the number of the names of those 20 years old and upward being listed individually, which is one possible problem with David's census. The people were listed individually here in Numbers. Joab counted statistics and just separated them by whether they were from Judah or Israel. Numbers 19 to 46, or verses 19 to 46, list the numbers from each tribe. 47 to 49 gives specific instructions not to count the tribe of Levi. They will not have military duties. Verses 50 to 53, the Levites are over the tabernacle of the testimony, over all its implements and all pertaining to it. They're to carry the tabernacle, its utensils, tend to it, and camp around it. Whenever the tabernacle sets out, the Levites are to dismantle it, and whenever the tabernacle is pitched, the Levites are to set it up. But the commoner who comes near to it must be put to death. Bnei Israel will encamp each man with his own camp, each with his own standard according to their own divisions. The Levites are to camp around the tabernacle of the testimony, so there will be no wrath unleashed on the community of Bnei Israel. So the Levites are to maintain care of the tabernacle of the testimony. So Bnei Israel did all that Adonai commanded Moses, so they did. Chapter 2 describes in detail how each tribe is to camp around the tabernacle. In the last chapter, Levi was to surround the tabernacle. Now we have details about how each camp is to camp around the tribe of Levi. When they move out, the tribe of Judah is to go first. That is the tribe of the king Yeshua. Perhaps that is why they should lead in battle. 32 to 34, these are the numbers of Bnei Israel in accordance with their ancestral household. All those counted according to their divisions are 603,550. Although the Levites are not counted among Bnei Israel as Adonai had commanded Moses. So Bnei Israel acted in accordance with all that Adonai had commanded Moses. Thus they camped by their standards and set out, each man according to their families and their ancestral houses. Under God's leadership, Israel was a very well-organized military force. By the way, Josephus refers to Moses as a great military general while he was in Egypt. I do not know of any other source corroborating that, but it does seem possible, as Moses was raised in the palace as a grandson of Pharaoh. Chapter 3 starts out with the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Chapter 3, verses 4 to 10. But Nadab and Abihu died before Adonai for offering unauthorized fire before Adonai in the Sinai wilderness. They had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as Kohanim under Aaron their father. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Gather the tribe of Levi near and appoint them to attend to Aaron the Kohen. They are to keep watch over duties for him and the entire community before the tent of meeting while performing the service of the tabernacle. They are to tend to all the implements of the tent of meeting and the service of Bnei Israel while performing the service of the tabernacle. You are to give the Levites to Aaron and to his sons. Out of Bnei Israel they are dedicated entirely to him. you are to appoint Aaron and his sons to maintain the priesthood. Any commoner who approaches must be executed. Aaron and his sons were appointed to very serious holy duties. Anyone not appointed, not a son of Aaron, who attempted to perform priestly duties, must be executed. If God calls you to do something, by all means do it. But do not decide you want to do something else instead. Remember what happened to Jonah. God then told Moses to number the sons of Levi, every male 1 month old and upward. God is claiming the Levites for himself in place of the firstborn of Israel. Sons of Levi, and the census was 1 month old and upward. There were Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. Of the sons of Gershom, Libni and Shimei. The census of the Gershonites was 7,500. They were to camp behind the tabernacle on the west. So earlier the Levites were to camp around. Now where are they to camp specifically? By family. Their duties were the tabernacle, the tent, its coverings, the curtain of the entrance of the tent of meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the screen of the entrance of the courtyard around the tabernacle, and the altar, its ropes, and all related to its use. Sons of Kohath, Amram, that was the father of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The Kohathites the census was 8,600. Kohathites were to camp along the side of the tabernacle on the south. The duties were responsibility for the ark, the table, the menorah, the altars, the implements of the sanctuary used in service with them, the curtain, and all involved with its use. Because their duties involved the sanctuary, Eleazar the priest was placed over them. Merari, his sons were Mali and Mushi. The census of the Merarites was 6,200, and they were to camp on the north side of the tabernacle. Duties included care of the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, its posts, its bases, all equipment for its use. The post of the surrounding courtyard, their bases, their pegs, and their ropes. Verse 38, those camping in front of the tent of meeting, on the east toward the sunrise were Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons. They were to care for the sanctuary on behalf of Bnei Israel. But anyone unauthorized who approached had to be executed. God thought this was important enough to be repeated. God made it easy for the Levites. If you are from this family, your job is X, Y, and Z. If you are from the other 11 tribes and capable of handling a sword, you are a soldier. Soldiers have a lot of time on their hands, so they assumed other duties, such as complaining about no food, no water, no meat. In their spare time, they built an altar for the golden calf and did other things they probably shouldn't have done. The work for the priest, Levites, and soldiers did were all necessary for the survival of the people. It is not so easy for us. We have to figure out what God has called us to do. Sometimes it is obvious, and sometimes not so much. Rav Shaul, using the human body as an illustration applicable to the body of believers in the following passage, the same would be applicable to the body of Lev Hashem. 1 Corinthians 12 to 31. For just as the body is one and has many parts, and all the parts of the body, though many, are one body, so also is Messiah. For in Ruach we were all immersed into one body, whether Jewish or Greek, slave or free, we are all made to drink of one ruach. For the body is not one part, but many. If the foot says, since I am not a hand, I am not part of the body, is it therefore not part of the body? And if the ear says, since I am not an eye, I am not part of the body. Is it for this reason any less part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? Now God has placed the parts, each one of them, in the body just as he desired. If they were all one part, where would the body be? But now there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot tell the hand, I have no need of you, nor turn the head to the feet, I do not need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be less important are indispensable. Those parts of the body that we think to be less honorable, we clothe with greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, but our presentable parts have no such need. Rather, God assembled the body, giving more honor to those who are lacking, so that there may be no division in the body, but so that the parts may have the same care for one another. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer together. If one part is honored, all the parts rejoice together. Now you are the body of Messiah, and members individually. God has put into his community first emissaries, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then healings, helps, leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are they not all are not emissaries, are they? All are not prophets, are they? All are not teachers, are they? All do not work miracles, do they? All do not have the gift of healing, do they? All do not speak in tongues, do they? All do not interpret, but earnestly desire the greater gifts. Each of us has something important we can contribute. There's plenty for everyone to do. Talk to leadership about your particular calling, skills, and what you enjoy. So the Levites, 1 month old and upward, and this is what Michelle read this morning, numbered 22,000. God then told Moses to number the firstborn of Israel from 1 month old and upward. That count was 22,273. Moses had to collect 5 shekels to redeem each of the 273 excess firstborn. The money was to go to the priests. The idea of first fruits, or firstborn, or first fruits belonging to God is a recurring theme. We are to give the first and the best to God. Leviticus 23, 9-10. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel and tell them, when you have come into the land which I give you and reap its harvest, you are to bring the omer of the first fruits of your harvest to the Kohen. Proverbs 3:9. Honor Adonai with your wealth and with the first of your entire harvest. Romans 11:16. If the first fruit is holy, so is the whole batch of dough. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. Numbers chapter 4 begins with the census of the sons of Kohath from 30 years of age to 50. They're responsible for the most holy things stated above. Note, when the camp moves out, the sons of Kohath do not just run into the most holy place and go to work. There are detailed instructions. Numbers 4, 5-20. When the camp is about to move out, Aaron and his sons are to take down the shielding curtain and cover the ark of the testimony with it. They are to cover this with porpoise hide, then spread over it a cloth of solid blue. Then they are to put its poles in place. Then over the table of presents, they are to spread a solid blue cloth. Then lay on it the plates, ladles, bowls, and jars for the drink offering. The bread that is continually there is to remain there. Over them they are to spread a solid scarlet cloth, cover it with a covering of porpoise hides, then install its poles. Then they are to take a blue cloth and cover the menorah for light, along with its lamps, tongs, sniffers, and oil jars that they use to tend it. Then they are to wrap it and all its accessories in a cover of porpoise hide and place it all on a carrying frame. Over the golden altar they are to spread a blue cloth and cover that with a covering of porpoise hide, then put its poles in place. They are to take all the utensils used for the service of the ministry of the sanctuary, wrap them in a blue cloth, cover them with porpoise hide, and place them on a carrying frame. They are to remove the ashes from the altar, then spread over it a purple cloth. They are to put onto it all the utensils from which they tend the altar, among them the fire pans, meat forks, shovels, and sprinkling bowls. They are to spread over it a covering of porpoise hides and install its poles. When Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sanctuary and all its holy implements, and when the camp is ready to move out, after this, the sons of Kohath may come to do the carrying. But they must not touch the holy items, or they will die. These are the tasks for the sons of Kohath with regard to the tent of meeting. Eleazar, son of Aaron, the Kohen, will have charge of the oil for the light, the fragrant incense, the regular grain offering, and the anointing oil. He is to have charge of the tabernacle and all that is in it, including the holy items and all its implements. Adonai spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "You are not to let the families of the tribe of the Kohathites be cut off from among the Levites. Do this for them. Cover everything properly, so that they may live and not die whenever they approach the most holy items. Aaron and his sons are to go into the sanctuary and assign each man his job and his responsibility. But the Kohathites are not to go in and look at what is holy, not even momentarily, or they will die." Before all these things are moved, they are to be carefully covered in a precise manner. That is to keep the Kohath and others who may see these items from dying. After all of these fine detailed instructions, let us skip ahead to 1 Samuel chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. So it was, the word of Samuel went forth to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines in battle. They camped at Ebenezer, when the Philistines camped in Ephek. The Philistines drew up in battle array to meet Israel. When the battle was fought, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed 4,000 men on the battlefield. When the people came back to the camp, the elders of Israel asked, "Why did Adonai bring defeat on us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of Adonai from Shiloh, that he may come among us and deliver us from the hand of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh, and from there they carried the ark of the covenant of Adonai Tsevaot, who sits above the cherubim. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Eli the priest was a good guy, but his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were a couple of skunks. They greatly abused their position as priests. Even though Hophni and Phinehas were involved, it does not sound like the ark was properly moved by Levites. Was it properly covered? It was certainly not moved because of God's instruction. God probably allowed it to proceed because he had a plan. Now when the ark of the covenant of Adonai entered the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the ground resounded. When the Philistines heard the noise, of the shout, they wondered, "What is the noise of a great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" When they realized the ark of Adonai had come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." So they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us! Who will deliver us from the hand of this mighty God? This is the God that struck down the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and conduct yourselves like men, O Philistines, or else you will become enslaved to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be like men and fight." So the Philistines did fight, and Israel was defeated. They fled every man to his tent. The slaughter was very great, as 30,000 of Israel's foot soldiers fell. Moreover, the ark of God was captured, and Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. Well, that took care of two of the perpetrators. What do you do when you capture an enemy's god? You cannot put the foreign god in the Motel 6. Chapter 5 tells us they took the ark to Ashdod and brought it into the temple of Dagon, the fish god. They placed the ark beside the statue of Dagon. The next morning, the statue of Dagon had fallen on its face before the ark. What do you do when your god falls over? The Philistines picked Dagon up and put him back in his place. 1 Samuel 5, verse 4 says, "But when they arose early the following morning, surprisingly, Dagon had fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of Adonai, and the head of Dagon and both palms of his hands were cut off on the threshold. Only Dagon's trunk was left on him." Verses 6 and 7, "And the hand of Adonai was heavy upon the Ashdodites, ravaging them and afflicting Ashdod and its vicinity with tumors. When the men of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, 'The ark of the God of Israel must not stay with us, for his hand has dealt harshly against us as well as against our god Dagon.' So they took the ark to Gath, another Philistine city. Goliath, whom we encounter later, was from Gath. The problems followed the ark. So they took it to Ekron, another Philistine city. Finally, out of fear, they decided they should return the ark to Israel. 1 Samuel 5:12. "The people who did not die were afflicted with tumors, so that the outcry of the city went up to heaven." 1 Samuel 6, verse 1. "After the ark of Adonai had been in the country of the Philistines 7 months, the Philistines consulted with their heathen priests and diviners as to how to return the ark to Israel. They were told to send it with a guilt offering of 5 golden tumors and 5 mice, one for each of the lords of the Philistines. Perhaps God will lighten his hand off of you, your gods, and your land. But why harden your hearts, as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? When he afflicted them, did they not send them away, so they left? Now therefore, get a new cart ready, 2 milk cows on which there had never been a yoke. Hitch the cows to the cart, and return their calves home away from them. Then take the ark of Adonai and place it on the cart. Also put the golden objects that you return to him as a guilt offering in a box by its side. Then send it off so it may go. Then watch. If it goes by the way of its own territory to Beth-Shemesh, then it was he who inflicted on us this great harm. But if not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us. It just all happened to us by chance." God proved to the Philistines their fish god was a wimp. Dagon could do nothing to prevent Adonai from doing as he wished. After all of this, the Philistines did not turn to God. They merely wanted to be rid of him. 1 Samuel 6:14-15. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Bethshemesh and stopped there, where there was a large stone. Then they chopped the wood of the cart and offered up the cows as a burnt offering to Adonai. The Levites took down the ark of Adonai and the box that was with it that contained the gold objects, and placed them on the large stone. Then the people of Bethshemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifices to Adonai that day. The 5 lords of the Philistines saw this and returned home. 1 Samuel 6:19-21. Then God, struck down some of the men of Bethshemesh because they had gazed into the ark of Adonai. He struck down the people, 70 out of 50,000 men. The people mourned because Adonai had struck the people with a great slaughter. So the men of Bethshemesh asked, "Who is able to stand before Adonai, this holy God? To whom should it go up from us?" So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines had brought back the ark of Adonai. Come down, bring it up to you." Some of the people did wrong and were punished for it. Rather than realize what they had done and repent, they wanted to get rid of the ark. They called the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim. With friends like that, who needs enemies? It turned out the ark stayed in Kiriath Jearim for 20 years. 2 Samuel 6:1-3. Now David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. David and all the people who were with him arose and set out from Baale-Judah to bring down from there the ark of God, which is called by the very name of Adonai Tsevaot, who is enthroned between the cherubim. So they loaded the ark of God on a new cart and carried it out of the house of Abinadab that was on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons, drove the new cart as they brought it from the house of Abinadab, which is on the hill, with the ark of God, and Ahio was walking in front of the ark. Who said anything about moving the ark on a cart?
No one.
The Philistines got by with it, but they didn't know any better. It was God's grace that spared their lives.
Yeah.
The Israelites.
2 Samuel 6:6-7. But when they reached the threshing floor of Nahon, Uzzah reached out to the ark of God and grasped it, for the oxen had stumbled.
No.
Then the anger of Adonai was kindled against Uzzah. God struck him down there for his irreverence, so that he died there beside the ark of God. Verses 10-11. David was unwilling to move the ark of Adonai to him to the city of David. Instead, David diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. So the ark of Adonai remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months. Meanwhile, Adonai blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household. A Gittite, by the way, is someone living in or from Gath. So Obed-Edom was a Philistine. 1 Chronicles 15:2. Then David said, "No one should carry the ark of God except the Levites." He had done his homework. For Adonai has chosen them to carry the ark of Adonai and to serve him forever. So David gathered the families of the Levites we had recently read about. 1 Chronicles 15:12-13. He, David, told them, "You are the heads of the Levitical families. Sanctify yourselves, you and your kinsmen, so that you may bring up the ark of Adonai, the God of Israel, to the place that I have prepared for it. Because you were not there the first time, Adonai our God burst out upon us, for we did not seek him regarding the prescribed way." I guess it was the Levites' fault they were not invited the first time. But David did acknowledge he did not seek God regarding the proper way to move the ark. 1 Chronicles 15:15-16. The Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders with poles, just as Moses commanded according to the word of Adonai. David ordered the leaders of the Levites, to appoint their kinsmen, the singers with musical instruments, harps, lyres, I guess they included politicians, and cymbals to joyfully make their voices heard. Now when the bearers of the ark of Adonai had gone 6 paces, 2 Samuel 6:13 tells us, when the bearers of the ark of Adonai had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. 1 Chronicles 15:26 tells us, because God helped the Levites who were carrying the ark of the covenant of Adonai, they sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. So what have we learned? Our God is a God of order. The United States Army has divisions separated by mission. God designated each tribe to be a division, with the exception of the Levites. Each division was to camp in a certain place in relation to the tabernacle. When they moved out, whether for battle or to relocate, he specified the order in which each division was to move out. God even specified the duties of the priests and Levites, so everyone knew what was expected. What to do, what not to do. Today, we followed an order of service. It is similar to last week's, but it is planned and organized. For Passover, we have a Seder, an order. Chaos and confusion is not of God.
Amen.
When you see chaos and confusion, run for your lives. There is a job for everyone. If you are part of the body, you have a job. There is something you can contribute. We have a variety of gifts that, if used together, will make the body a success. The example Rav Shaul used was the physical body. It applies to the body of believers as a whole, as well as to the body of Lev Hashem. If everyone contributes a small amount, Lev Hashem will be a well-oiled machine, instead of a few people getting burnt out trying to do everything. God has a certain way he wants things done. Rabbis have spent a great deal of time discussing how things are to be done. If you're a Jewish believer, you're called to respect the decisions of the rabbis. If you're a Gentile believer, it would behoove you to consider the decisions of the rabbis. They do have a lot of insight. If you're not a believer, i.e. someone who has never acknowledged Yeshua or Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice for your sins, talk to one of us. Any leadership, Rabbi Shmuel, John, Paula, talk to somebody. Even if you're not ready to make a decision and just have questions, we are a family and we're here for you. We love you.